Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Nurturing Astrology podcast. I'm Dominique Hadamiel, your astrologer and host. I believe astrology can fast track personal growth, improve lives, and empower parents, and also save relationships, families, and marriages. So, on the Nurturing Astrology podcast, I will offer practical guidance for applying astrology to all of these important areas of life. I'll offer insight from my own work, studies, and life experiences, as well as interview experts to bring you stellar wisdom from other professionals to inspire you on your journey. I'm so glad you're here, and I can't wait to get started. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hi, everyone, and welcome back for another insightful interview on the Nurturing Astrology podcast. I'm Dominique, your host and astrologer. Today, I am super excited to be chatting with the beautiful and beloved Molly McCord. Many of you already know Molly from her weekly intuitive astrology forecast, her galactic channeling shows, and her many wonderful teachings on YouTube. But beyond that, for those who may be new to her, Molly is an intuitive business coach. She's an evolutionary astrologer and a modern consciousness teacher, as well as a mama. And she has written dozens of books. She first released her memoir in 2013, The Art of the Trapeze, One Woman's Journey of Soaring, Surrendering, and Awakening. And like many of you, that's probably how you discovered Molly. That's how I discovered her. Loved that book so much. Then in 2014, I had a reading with her, and we totally hit it off and kind of became friends. We started a Facebook group together for a couple years. It was a conscious astrology conversation for women and mamas. And then in 2016, she put together a compilation book, Modern Heroine Soul Stories, collection of 24 stories for women. And it was to support the nonprofit Women for Women International. And I was asked to be a part of that. And it was an awesome project to be a part of. So I have a story in there as well. It was a beautiful book and such a great project to be a part of. And then Molly's latest book is Awakening Astrology: 5 Key Planetary Energies for Personal Transformation. Also, another great book, and I love this approach for soul growth. So check that out as well. So you are going to love this interview with Molly. I can't wait to get started. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hi, Molly. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Dominique, for having me. I'm so excited to be here and to talk about this journey as parenting with astrology. It's going to be awesome. Thank you for having me.
Oh my gosh. Thank you for being here. I know you're a busy, busy girl with so much going on. And I introduced you a little bit already to the people who don't know you because you have such a wonderful reach. And I know so many know you. And I personally have, it's rare I don't meet someone or have a client that doesn't follow you, that doesn't listen to you. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Well, I appreciate that. But I mean, you and I go back to like what, 2014?
14.
14. I mean, we've known each other for a while. We had our Facebook group together. Like, we've had these conversations about conscious parenting with astrology for a while. So I'm so delighted that we're doing this and
yeah,
with it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, yeah, it's been a minute. And our kids are growing up. Your child is like in 2nd grade. Mine's in 6th. You're like, whoa. So yeah, this, when my son was born, definitely this became a huge focus for me. And I thought, oh my gosh, if I can know all this stuff for myself, and it really helped me know myself on my journey, having this information for my kid is priceless. Like they say, your kid doesn't come with a manual, but they do, right? They come. So, but with our journey as parents, it really starts with us, right? We always have to be taking care of ourselves. And I know you're a big proponent of self-care. Mm-hmm. And that is so helpful to be reminded of, I think, for so many mamas. And soul growth is your thing, and I think it's so important. So like, share with us and anyone who's new to you, like what that is, what your work is in terms of soul growth, and, how your personal journey is, and what you kind of do to keep yourself on that journey, even with all the things you have to do for your family and your business.
Right. Well, that is the ongoing dance for all of us who have a very big life and who have many things going on simultaneously in all these different directions. So, just like probably many people, I just do my best every day. And I'm grateful to have astrology as a navigation tool for my son, as well as for me. And it's been through these years and decades of studying astrology that, we've learned how useful and beneficial it is. So, I'm grateful that I can use that for understanding who he is, but then also to understand the bigger overall energies every day. So in terms of self-care, I realize that for me, it will depend on the energies I'm feeling. There's days when I need to do less, or I need to sleep more, or I'm super hungry. There's days I need more grounding, or I'm just super busy. So I guess I don't have that one self-care routine. Mine fluctuates. It fluctuates back and forth. And it just depends on what I need because my energy will change on a daily basis. So that's one way that I do it. It's probably a little different than a lot of what's shared out there. Is like, I don't have like, I do this, I do this, I
Yeah.
do this every day. I go with what the energy is, I go with what I need, and I just trust it. So that's just how I approach every day. Of course, I'm always looking at my phone, so I need to get away from my phone. But I feel like in this day and age, like our needs are meant to evolve, and I'm just open to what that looks like for me, like what I need that I didn't realize I needed. But I guess I will say I'm a big proponent of exercising, of going for walks, doing my Pilates, like anything that helps my body feel stronger and healthier. I do that, take my vitamins, make good choices.
Yes, absolutely. And I think in a way you're like liberating us all because it's hard to stay on a regular routine. It's like, we're in Virgo season. We're starting to like talk about that now. And I'm like, yeah, I need to get back to this. I need to get back to that. It's going with the ebb and flow and taking a break over the summer and realizing we need more play. And, so it is about going with the flow of the energy and realizing, hey, like I'm going to need some extra rest. And yes, there are certain proponents of well-being that I need to take my vitamins and try and stay active and rest is best, they say, right? And like my friend says is like rest is worth, it equals worth, like really taking care of yourself. Yeah, so you've liberated us all. We don't have to stay on a schedule. And also
I just do what I need and do it, and that's the priority. I feel like something we just need to find a way to prioritize ourselves and our own needs.
Yes.
That changes during different times of the year because school starts, right? And so we have new school year routines. We have different things going on the weekends and like play dates and birthday parties, and things change depending on what our kids are doing too. Yep. So I try to make it a priority of like, what can I do when I can do it, knowing that everything is happening during the school year.
Yeah. And you do have to schedule your time for doing all your podcasts and like getting all your, your things out the door so that you can, have that, that time. But I totally agree. And so how often are you looking at your own astrology or just the overall energies of the day? Like on a daily basis, do you look at your own astrology? Do you kind of know your astrology? I know my chart pretty much by heart. You probably know yours, right? So you kind of can know and sense what's happening for you. So but you're always writing about, and you seem to be like ahead, like thinking ahead. We're thinking years ahead and all of this coming, the bigger cycles. How do you juggle it all and stay grounded in the moment? You know what I mean?
Okay, so I have to work at that because honestly, like for example, I was just looking at an ephemeris for the next decade. I was looking at something for like 2034, and then I was looking at something for 2027, to the point where some days I'm like, what's today? What month are we in? What? Like I have to literally bring myself back to the present moment very intentionally. And then it takes me a minute to be like, okay, what is going on? What is happening? So I think that's just part of like how we have to be aware of today's priorities, today's energies, because in astrology, you can be really focused on the future and the past and all these other dates and energies and cycles. And there's been so much big astrology we've moved through in recent years that sometimes I really have to be very intentional about what is happening today. So I do make that a focus. I do check in on my own energy. And when I don't, if I like have a rough day or something's going on, then I'll look back and be like, oh, well, that's what was happening. I forgot to check
Yes.
Mars or forgot to check whatever. So it's still a useful tool every day. But I do have to be very intentional with it because it always explains something. It's always like, oh, that's what happened or that's what was going on.
Absolutely. I feel the same way. I definitely do that. I'm looking at those big pictures. But what I found as a mom, and especially when my child was younger, whenever I was like having a moment,
Right.
I would go look at the astrology. It wasn't like I was looking at it all the time. I was like, oh, okay, no wonder.
It's
It was
reassuring
validating. Yes.
and validating. Yes, exactly. And we need that at times. It's like, okay, well, that makes sense. And, depending on how the day went or what unfolded, it's like, well, I'll do better tomorrow or we'll start again tomorrow. But it
Yeah.
helps with understanding because I feel like the more that we're learning our own astrology chart, we're like syncing up. It's kind of like syncing up with a natural frequency that we are. And then more things start to connect and make sense.
Mm.
And I've learned that the more that I trust my astrology chart, because I will tell you, I don't always like the planets I have at times. I don't always like, I can resist it, or I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. That's my Mars, or that's my, Mercury, whatever. I have to come back to trusting that energy of my chart. And that helps me relax into like what I'm feeling, what I'm sensing, what's going on. And I think that takes ongoing practice, to be
Yeah.
like, okay, this is my energy. It's not what my mind wants, or it's not what I'm expecting. There's something about just like really trusting your own energy, and astrology connects you to that then becomes a new practice.
Oh my God, that's so true. It's so true. Yeah.
Mhm.
And accepting self-acceptance is huge, right? And really accepting that this is the blueprint for my life. These are the lessons I'm supposed to be learning. Why? Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, Saturn, like you're okay, Saturn's in Aquarius, my sign, what's going on? And it's hard to, yeah, and it's hard to like not transit chase. I know a lot of people do that. That's what Storm and Grace calls this, transit chasing. I'm like, oh yeah, so I'm telling people constantly, don't transit chase, but we all do it.
We do it and then it's like, oh, that's happening next year, so let me start feeling anxious about it now. Let me worry about what might or might not happen, but let me just like it's like a mental exercise. And we're like, okay, in 3 years, this is happening with Pluto. Okay, let me stress about it now. Like, no, we can't do that to ourselves. And that is part of practice too, like the ongoing practice of, again, relaxing into our charts and just trusting the flow. And also the fact that we don't know how these transits are going to show up. Like,
I know.
you don't know for yourself and you don't know for your child. So there's this kind of self-management that we have to practice so we don't like freak ourselves out unnecessarily.
Oh, it's so true. It's so true. So let's dive into the parenting portion now. That is a perfect segue. So looking at the child's chart, like what's your approach to looking at the child's chart? And, I know you and I were probably looking at birth. I know I was, so what is your approach and how often do you look at it or use it? What's your, sort of guideline?
So I'll start by saying I only have one child. So
Me too.
that's different if you have 3 kids, 4 kids, 18 kiddos. So I
Amen.
just have one chart to focus on, which makes it more simple. And I have known his chart since birth, and I know most of it already. So I'm pretty aware of the transits and what's going on, although I do need to look at things because there's so much that can happen in a chart that's easy to miss. It's easy to miss certain energies and transits. But what I focus on, or what I find so important, are the sun and the moon, because that moon, especially, with your child, that's what you're feeling. That's what they need every day.
Yeah.
So I feel that the moon is so vital to understand because that's what the child especially needs from a mother figure. Because as we know, the moon is about that feminine, mothering, nurturing energy. So how they need to be nurtured, seen, understood. I'm very aware of anything with his Mercury, where how he's thinking, what he's saying, what he's perceiving. Also, how he needs to be talked to, like what he's looking for. Because my child, he has Mercury in Virgo. I don't have any planets in Virgo. And so it takes me time to like get to that place of being very specific, very clear. And I'll notice it in my communication style with him. Like if I'm not specific enough, he misses it. So I have to be very clear with him about what we're doing, where we're going. what needs to be done, please clean up your toys, let's clean up, and even like, let's put away 7 toys right now. I'm learning him. We think we're like, well, we're learning a chart, but we're learning another being, and we're learning how they're receiving it. So yeah, the astrology is a great heads up into how to see them and to learn them even better.
Absolutely. And absolutely, communication is huge, huge. My son has Mercury in Pisces, and I have Venus in Pisces, so I feel him, but with all my air, I'm like, you're talking in pictures, and I'm trying to like discern what that means. And I do find it tough for, there's a lot of miscommunication, and I feel like I need a little bit more information. Can you paint me a bigger picture so that I can understand, because it hurts his feelings if I don't understand him, Yeah.
And I think too, like, that's part of learning. The child is learning what their sensitivities are. Learning, like, because my son is very much an empath, and I can feel that a lot of his, I'm going to say spiritual gifts are coming in now. So he just turned 7. And in astrology, that's a big age because it's the first Saturn square. So transiting Saturn squares natal Saturn. So there's something there in his next year that's going to be significant. But I can also feel like he's so open and aware that you're learning your child, age by age and day by day, but you're learning them at different energy levels too.
Yes.
So yes, with that Mercury in Pisces, like, so sensitive, but also so intuitive. And it's like, you're like learning, how do I communicate in a way that he gets what I'm saying as I get what he's saying. Yeah.
And I want to also, and this we can segue into honestly consciousness, because I know he's super intuitive. He's wise beyond his years. And I'm trying to teach him about that gift that he has and how to trust it. When kids are little, we like, trust that feeling, that gut. But for water children, water babies, they really do have that intuition too. And trying to teach your child about trusting that inner knowing and that inner voice and that wisdom and consciousness. How do you teach a child consciousness?
Yeah, I feel like that is a very big and great topic, because it's sort of like, it comes down to their own desire and willingness. And it also, at some point, it becomes an age appropriate thing. Like, there's only so much a child understands, at various ages.
Of course.
But I feel like what I can offer him or remind him is to keep trusting himself, and to not shut down what he's feeling, what he's seeing, what he's sensing, like, to keep it open. And I'm going to say specifically for boys, like, I'm stereotyping a bit here, but there's something where if the young boy doesn't feel like it's okay to say what he feels, or to be emotional, or to trust his intuition, there's things later on in life that he could, start to get messages around it being bad. We don't do that, whatever. So I feel like it's up to us to keep it open and to show them how much wisdom they have, and to trust their feelings, to trust what they're seeing, all of that, and to be that safe place to talk about it and to share it. And so I think that helps with their own consciousness, like, to keep it open and flowing, instead of feeling like, oh, I have to be a certain way, or shut it down, or, boys don't do this or girls don't do this. Like, all of that, none of that matters. They need that safe place to just be who they are. And astrology shows us that as we continue to learn more about how they're showing up in the world and who they are.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I totally agree with the boy thing. We're both moms to boys, and a sensitive boy, a highly intuitive boy. And in our culture and, family, I've had to even, it helps teach us. I don't have a ton of water, so it helps teach us about that too. And our families, my husband, he has a lot of water, but he's still come up in a culture where boys don't cry, or, you don't cry at certain places, right? It's like that etiquette. And I've totally taught him how to accept that his child is very sensitive, and we don't want to shut that down. And I think it's imperative for moms, especially of boys who are, more sensitive, to be able to have that safe space and be able to find a way to navigate those emotions in a healthy way. I totally agree.
I think, we all need that.
Yes. Yes.
But also, my son, he said something so beautiful the other day. Like, he was upset about something, and he's like, I just have a lot of feelings. And I'm like, that's beautiful, honey. That's wonderful. Tell me what you're feeling.
Yes.
Bring it out, don't withhold it. Don't shut it down. And so we talk about it. We do whatever needs to happen so that those feelings can be welcomed and a part of who he is.
Yeah.
And also something that he learns to hear and trust in himself, that I hope, helps him, especially the formative ages right now of like really, becoming who they are, that it's totally okay. It's acceptable. And yeah, it's definitely part of, I feel it as like the parenting responsibility. But also there's something about, when you see your child for who they are energetically, like that brings them to life, that gives them life. So yeah, there's a lot wrapped up in that.
Absolutely. I think that's why I've focused on temperament, understanding that temperament can be seen in the chart because we're born with it and we can see that energy and it's observable. It's observable and so helpful. So it's been really, really powerful. So in terms of astrologers who are doing child's charts, there aren't a lot of astrologers out there that do them. I think there are, but maybe it's not as widely advertised because we don't want to put our children in a box. That is the opposite of what astrology is here to do. And I think most ethical, good astrologers know that, but it's hard. Parents want to know, so in terms of astrologers that want to work with children or parents and children, what approach do you say? I mean, I know we've kind of hit that basically you can focus on the moon alone, and the sun and moon alone is really, I always tell people, you don't have to know the whole chart. You could know the energetic, temperament of the chart and that sun and moon and maybe rising, and you're really good for a while because the chart comes alive over time. We know when we talk to people, their charts come alive. And your child's chart comes alive, and then it informs you how to respond, right? Absolutely. So then it's like, that's why it's important to know ourselves. So we know how best to respond to create that environment best for our child, which is what they want. How do I create the best environment for my child? So what's your advice to astrologers in doing child's charts?
I mean, I think that it's like dealing with any chart that's not your own. It's like, you want to know because you want to get it right, but there's things that you're just going to learn as you go that the child is going to reveal, and the child reveals it at their own level of consciousness, their own level of expression. And there's things that you can tap into and get a better handle on, but I don't feel like we have that level of complete access to a child because they're their own soul, they're their own energy vessel, like they're their own being. It reminds me of some parents who really want their child to do something because it matters to the parent more than it matters to the child, or the fact that like some parents are like, well, this is the dream of mine and I really want my daughter to have this or my son to have this. It's like, your child is going to have their own dreams. They're going to have their own ambitions. They're going to have their own everything. So I feel like it's this interesting dance between our energy and the child's energy around, leaving space for them to reveal who they are and understand them, but knowing that there's things that only they will know about themselves, just like there's things that only we will know about ourselves. So there's something about the ethical boundaries, the support, the understanding, okay, this is how their Mercury works, so this is their Venus, so this is what they need to feel loved and confident and good about themselves. I mean, you can really go into those parts of knowing your child. But I feel like, first of all, I feel like just looking at their astrology chart is a huge parenting win. Is a huge advantage, a huge step up. I understand my son, so he has his sun in the 11th house, his moon is in the 9th house. Right away, I get a really clear snapshot on his energy, what he's about, but then he shows me what that is. So it's kind of like, we don't have to know. We don't need to know all the answers, but we're on this journey with them of them revealing who they are and just being able to be a witness, to be a support, to be loving, to be seeing them for who they are. I mean, that's huge. And, no disrespect to my parents, but they never had my astrology chart. Like, if they knew my astrology chart, it would have explained so much about who I am and who I'm not.
Right.
So I guess for a chart, you could say, okay, but this is who they're not. I mean, that can help you understand who they're not in a way too.
Oh, that's a really great point. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I had a client in back that was like, I'm putting, my son in sports, and like, because that's what, boys do, it's good for them. And I said, well, why do you really feel that you want to do this? Well, it's what I did as a kid and it was good for me, and I was like, okay, see, and I explained to Mercury this, and the different parts of the chart. This is what actually that child's going to need and want and enjoy the most. And that liberates you and goes, oh yeah. So it's just recognizing, let me see who this child really is. And then there's things in the family that a child naturally gravitates to because they're part of the family, things you do together. Or baseball, for example, with my son, my husband did it. He coached him when they were young. Baseball's great, so many life lessons. But recognizing that maybe it's not who you are for life, it's just something you do when you're young and for fun that you enjoyed and bonded with dad. But there's this separation that has to happen with, oh, I'm not that, and I don't have to do that just because dad likes it, and that's big. And that's where I feel like I told my husband, we're at this really big pivotal moment as parents. Okay. It's big where we have to really step back.
I'm thinking about, so knowing my son's chart, and he's Sun in Leo in the 11th house. And so I thought, oh, well, maybe he wants to do something in performance, or he wants to do something creative. And so he did some different kinds of like dance classes, and he's done recitals or performances at school. He's an empath, and there's too much energy for him. He doesn't want to be on a stage. He doesn't want to be in front of people. So I learned that as I went, because you could assume, okay, Sun in Leo in the 11th house, he wants to be out there. Actually, he doesn't. Not at this age. There's other things that he's experiencing and feeling and working with. And so that's what I learned. It's like, again, we don't always know. It's like we can take some parts of it, and it's more about, well, he wants to express himself in certain ways and he doesn't want to express himself in other ways. So there's something about, we have to be graceful with ourselves where we're learning who they are. But again, we don't know all of who they are. And that's where they're showing us.
And if the sun, we know, is sort of our journey of becoming, right? And your son has his sun in the 11th house, as mine does as well, and along with a lot of other planets. And I realized after, with time, as an only child too, how important friends were going to be.
Right.
And is your child's going to learn who they are through their friendships, through friends, and realizing, I'm sure for you as a son with, an only child, how big friends are going to be, that and what role they play in figuring out who they are. I just got chills thinking about that.
Because that's spot on, because he's like, he wants to know when his next play dates are. He loves things with his friends. He loves the parties and the gatherings and all of that. So that's what he really needs. And he is an extrovert. He's very social and talkative and so funny. But it's like, okay, learning where his energy is comfortable and where it's not definitely is like trial and error. Like we figure that out as we go.
Yeah. I think our boys would get along as well as we do. I definitely feel like it is priceless. Astrology is priceless for understanding our children, our own personal growth journey, and how that really giving ourselves a break and watching that evolution as opposed to pushing that evolution or seeking something out, right?
And even you had talked about or mentioned how we watch their charts. Well, watching the transits, especially outer planet transits in their chart, really shows us what's being activated, what's coming alive, like what is opening them up to their own energy through something in the world, whatever it might be. So I really pay attention to the transits in his chart, especially the outer planet ones, the significant ones, because I know that means, okay, this is going to be big for him. And then how can I support him? How can I have a heads up, that it's going to be a big week or a big month? What can I do to be there, knowing that's in the energy signature for him?
Yeah, I see that. So the larger transits, and also just being observant of their energies and watching that sort of manifest. And I always encourage parents too to do like Mommy and Me or understand child development, because you really can see, we know those Mars cycles every 2 years are these like learning and growth spurts and phases. And, the Saturn square, huge, right? So we know that we can look at these larger transits and get keys into what's coming, or where to look, and then where to prepare, and just create a safe space for whatever comes. That's why I feel like it's powerful knowledge, but you don't and can't know how it's all going to manifest. So there's a huge part of surrendering, right?
Yeah, because it's just like we don't know what our own transits are going to be.
Exactly.
We're just curious and open, and we get an idea of the themes or the energies or what we could encounter. But I feel like it just makes me a better parent, and it makes me more in tune with his energy. And I'm always open to learning and understanding more. But I feel like it just has helped me really hone in on more specifics that I wouldn't otherwise have.
Absolutely. And I think that's a big thing. I don't know about you, but when I first was looking at astrology at the chart, I really wanted to have all these answers. I really wanted to know. And I think a lot of parents do. And over the years, I have learned to rely less on it, and actually surrender to that not knowing. I mean, as an Aquarius mind, I want to know, right? Yeah. And it's a surrendering to not knowing the answers and just really trusting my own intuition and observation. And I think a big part of that is right now, astrology is really, really coming into the world and in popularity again now. And I love that more and more parents are aware of it. My parenting group has boomed over the last, couple of years. But I want them to also, recognize that it really still starts with us, and that we really can't have all the answers. That really, I want to pull back and remind them of the simplest things, like the moon or self-care and things like that. So how do you see astrology booming now in the world, and where it might be going, and how parents can really utilize that going forward in positive ways?
It's so exciting because the thing about astrology, and I've said this on my podcast, is that if it wasn't valid, if it wasn't beneficial, if it wasn't accurate in some way, it would have disappeared. It would have been gone a long time ago. So there's something about our consciousness that's syncing up with this wisdom, that's syncing up with what the universe is showing us and revealing to us. And I feel like it's exciting that we're at a place of consciousness where it can be welcomed, where we can be, curious and open. Because the thing about astrology is that it's an energetic system. It's a language about the energetics that we don't always understand mentally. It's not something that you can completely figure out. It's not that kind of system. It's something, it's bigger than what our human minds can even grasp at times, but it keeps proving to be accurate and relevant. So I think there's something about how astrology is showing up for people that is actually demonstrating something valuable for them, something worthwhile, it's beneficial. But I also feel like there's a curiosity. We have this insatiable curiosity. What is this? How is this so accurate? How is this so, on point for what I'm going through? And in that way, I feel like there's I don't know, it's like a humor to it, or a lightness to it.
Yes.
It just keeps working.
I know.
And it's awesome that we're able to bring it into our lives and to work with it because of what it reveals to us, the healing, the growth, the understanding, the self-acceptance, all of that. So I think it's so exciting that more people are interested in astrology. They're coming into this language, into this world. And I think it's going to continue. I really think it's going to continue to expand because it's Age of Aquarius. And, astrology is Aquarian. So we're moving into, the age of astrology.
Absolutely. But I do think that in compilation with that is this embodiment of it, the energetics of it. And everybody's talking about embodiment, right? And for the inquiring minds who want to know and know a system or know what this means in that house, there is an intuition, there is a needing to get into a symbiotic flow with it and feel it and sense it and live it, as opposed to just understanding what something means on the paper.
Right.
And I think that's huge. I have, trying to, my one student that I teach is very an intuitive. So I'm like, you have to use your gifts and bring this together because you already have a leg up, in my opinion, because you have that sensitive, that energy, you're sensitive to energy. So it's really learning to embody astrology. And there's a big proponent of bringing astronomy and astrology together so that, so that we can actually have that relationship with the sky, which then brings that energy in even more and in that aligning with that vibration. So in a way, I'm just coming to this kind of now, it's almost like we have to get off the paper a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like what could be potentially beautiful is that astronomy and astrology, it's astronomy being the science and astrology being the esoteric, and like how those can work together beautifully. They don't have to be oppositional. It doesn't have to be discord or disagreement. It's kind of like different sides of our brains, right? Like it's like the left side and the right side, both being strong, both being used appropriately and when necessary. So I feel like that could be an exciting development too. Where astrology is no longer the crazy bastard child. It's like, no, there's validity in this and there's usefulness here, and we're not crazy lunatics, but okay if you want to think that. And I feel like there's also been that superiority in it, and it'd be great if there was like a little bit more acceptance and merging and, the best of both worlds, essentially.
I totally agree. It's been one of the things that's been hardest for me is that feeling like the bastard child, really, of
every astrologer gets that. It's
everyone.
Just part of our like job title, and you get the stereotypes and the judgment. And I feel like that's something we just have to work through and not, surrender our power or doubt ourselves. It's like, no, we're on the front leading edge. Like we're mavericks, like we're pioneering more for humanity's best and highest good. And when we come from that place, it's like we can feel more solid.
Yeah. And that's why raising the next generations, right, with all of this wisdom, I feel like they're the future. And we're empowering them. And like you said, our parents didn't have astrology. They didn't know what personal growth was. They didn't know what conscious parenting was. So you don't want to hold any pain or judgment against that. It's just like, here we are, we can write the new story and we can raise the next generations to help raise consciousness on the planet, which I know is your work, which you are doing so beautifully and bringing so much to the world with all that you do. And it's been such a pleasure knowing you all these years, and it's been such a gift to be a part of your journey and to support each other. I have to say, like, since you stopped doing readings and you put me on your referral list, I have met some of the greatest people and even made some soul sister friends, clients, which I'm super, super grateful for. And I just love everything you're doing, and so glad that we have this connection, and that you're out there doing what you're doing and supporting other people like myself, who are trying to do it as well, and especially for the little ones.
It's all of us, and I feel like it's all of us, a rising tide lifts all boats. It's kind of like we all do this together. And I feel like part of the age of Aquarius too is that, we're also creating energetic room on the planet for everyone to be who they are, to shine their gifts, to participate, to be seen. And not only, the kids that we're raising, but all of us who are involved in this shared, passionate mission and this shared work of going into these esoteric sciences and bringing them out to the masses and to more people. Like, it's an exciting time in that regard, because we know the benefits of it, just like we know the benefits for our kids. We know how much it supports them, how much we can understand them, and all of that. So I feel like that's what we need right now, is more of this uplifting energy that understands like who we are, at the core.
And staying in that instead of getting sucked into what's going on around us, and I do sense that too. That's why I don't know who I'd be right now if I hadn't discovered astrology and went on this self-discovery journey through the astrology. I mean, I don't know. I honestly don't know where I'd be or who I'd be without it, And so it's life-changing and such a supportive tool. To me, it's like a shortcut to therapy. You know what I mean? Talk therapy is great, and I'm an advocate, but astrology clued me into way more of who I was and my energies, and has taught me way more about myself in a shorter amount of time. And it's why I always say personal growth is key, and astrology is an awesome tool, and then if you are a parent, it's just bonus, you know what I mean? And like you said, gives you a quick win, like right off the bat,
Yeah, and I feel like with astrology as a parenting tool, it's helped me ask better questions where I don't have to know an answer. Like my son will know the answer, or he'll communicate something. If I can ask a better question, that is one of the best tricks. Like that's one of the best things we can do. And so going back to their Mercury, knowing a child's Mercury is going to help you understand how they think, how they perceive or take in that question, what kind of question to ask them. And it kind of like saves all this wasted energy.
Oh, it's so true.
It saves you from having to throw all these shots in the dark. You're like, okay, no, I talked to his Mercury and Virgo in this way, which honestly, it's hard for me. I don't have any Virgo in my chart. And although I have people in my life, I've always had best friends and people who are Virgos because I don't have that. So they fill in that.
Yep.
And so it's like, it helps me understand the Virgo energies and archetypes better. And that's where my son is also my teacher. He's my teacher. He's teaching me more through his energy than I would have learned on my own. So
absolutely. You hit the nail on the head with that. It really, I mean, whenever I enter a situation, the chart will pop in. Okay, I'll remember and I'll go, okay. And it gives me that expectation. I immediately can adjust my expectation, not just of how old he is, what he's capable of, but who he is, how he's built, and then know how to approach a situation and a conversation, or to give him time and space before we have that conversation, allow him to say when he's ready to talk about something. And it's priceless because that information pops into my head and I go, oh yeah, okay. Now I can make a strategic step and save myself a lot of time and frustration and, upset and the whole nine. I mean, it's priceless. I mean, we could go on and on for days about the benefits, right?
Right. And that's what I think we want people to know. And like another example is that my son has Mars in Leo in the 10th house. And so he's very much wanting to do things his own way when he wants to do them. So I can see when that comes out. I also see when he wants to lead something. And again, going back to raising a boy, that's part of his masculine energy coming out that I don't want him to shut down. I want him to feel good about that part of himself. So there's times when I want that Mars and Leo in the 10th house to be really strong and to be in charge and to choose. And he'll be like, hey, mommy, we could go do blah, blah, blah. Maybe we should do blah, blah, blah. I'm like, that's a great idea. Let's do that. Where I want him to feel confident about his leadership style. And just knowing that about his chart, then I know how it's being expressed.
Yes.
So even if for some parents, if you don't know all their charts or all of the chart, or you have multiple kids and there's too much to remember, just some of these particulars, especially with their personal planets, they're going to help you the most because then you're going to see how it's coming alive and how it's being expressed through them.
Yes, because you don't want to shut down that fire. You want to help them use it in positive ways. And okay, that's a great idea, but we have to do this first and then we'll do that. So you have a strategic way of not shutting that down and nurturing it when it's, not the right timing. And, I'll give the audience a little tip. I did an interview some years back with a mom from my group. She was great. And it was about having multiple children because I didn't. And I was like, this is a great topic of conversation. And she has, I think, 4. And she literally had put her kids in teams because she had some air kids and some fire kids. And I thought, oh my God, that's genius. You know what I mean? So it's like, in a way, it was like kind of helping them understand each other, but also creating where they were strongest together. And I think when you have more than one child, it is a lot more complex and little tricks of the trade in terms of their energy and where they can support each other. And I've also had, we've had kids in workshops who literally were like opposites energies, and they are literally to teach each other about that. Yeah. And that's the benefit, I think, of having more than one child is they start to learn those relationship dynamics really early on in the home. Whereas with only children, we're their relationship dynamic coach, you know what I mean? Right. And their friends outside. But those are little tips. And you can take many different approaches to knowing the chart, the temperament when they're really young, or just the moon and working through those personal planets as they wake up in the chart, you know? And so much. We could probably deep dive forever, but I just really wanted you to come on and talk about, parenting, because I know you are one, and we have that bond over being mamas, and you do so much work in the consciousness field, but this is also really a passionate part of you and your life. And I wanted to give you a chance to speak to my audience and parents and talk a little bit about that from your perspective. So any final thoughts you have in terms of conscious parenting with astrology?
It is an ongoing journey, and don't put too much pressure on yourself to have it figured out or to know, because you won't and you can't, as we mentioned. But it is the little things that start to come alive that you experience with your kids that start to make sense, and you start to understand them. And I think that as the child matures, then it becomes more evident as well, who they are and how that energy expresses. So I feel like not only is it about knowing their chart, but then understanding how your chart interacts with their chart, because like with my son, we have some oppositional planets, and we have lots of trines, and we have conjunctions, like we have good connections overall. But if you're seeing, okay, we have lots of squares, or we have lots of oppositions, like that alone, it's really good to know, because then you can be very conscious about how you approach certain circumstances, interactions, conversations, what have you. It can only benefit you. It can only benefit you to know this information, because this is your child's manual, and it's something that you get to use. And that's an amazing tool. It's an amazing
Absolutely. Knowing our own manual and then how it fits or doesn't, or, with your child is huge. I absolutely agree. And that's huge. Synastry is key. And I think that another thing maybe to speak to is, I have a lot of parents who will see certain aspects in their child's chart and become very afraid, or see things in their child's chart like Moon Pluto conjunction and be very afraid because they maybe had a tough relationship with their mom and they don't want to emulate that. I have Moon Pluto conjunction, and I can see in my life how there's been challenges, but the biggest learning, transformational parts of my life too. And so I try to nurture parents to surrender, to say, this is still just knowledge that's powerful and doesn't have to manifest in the same way you experience it or how you're reading about it online. And that's another thing about parenting that's tough for parents, I think, is reading stuff online that's scary about a transit or about a aspect that their child may have, or between you and your child.
Yeah, no, it is. And that's very real. And it's certainly a part of parenting. I mean, just think back on your younger years, on your own wonder years, right? Like we all had things maybe that were hard with friends or friendships, or things that were difficult with our parents, or something with sports or activities, or like it's all part of like the life experience. And I feel like you don't have to control, you can't control it, but there's something about the more information you can gather and the more you can understand, like this is your child's own journey, this is what they're here for. And I even go higher into, the soul's purpose in this lifetime, where, okay, there's something very intentional about the moon conjunct Pluto. And that's a biggie, because it's the most personal planet, moon, with the most intense planet. But there's something that could be deeply empowering and amazing. And it's just understanding, okay, this child is their own soul and their own soul experience with this. So I say that, and yet it is hard to detach because we want to protect, we want to care for them, we want to make life easier. But I think part of the responsibility is too, like, we want to make them strong, we want them to be confident. I mean, one of the things I think about with my son is that, I want to give him enough tools and messages throughout the years that when he is ready to go on his hero's journey, out into the world, to understand who he is, to be in the world as an independent being, that he's got those tools and understanding of who he is to be who he is. So I feel like, it's a lot that goes into being a parent. I was telling a friend of mine, it's like it brings out the best in you and it brings out the worst in you. It brings out so much in your heart, so much of your love, and it can bring out so much of your fear. But that's also our own journey. Like that's what we have to manage for ourselves as well, is like how we show up as parents, while honoring, the separate soul and the journey they're on.
Absolutely. I think us becoming parents is simply part of our journey of self-discovery. A lot of people who don't have children still go on a self-discovery journey, right? You don't have children, but for the people who do, that becomes a huge player in your journey. I never necessarily thought I would have kids or want it. And then as a Cancer rising, when I did, I was like, of course I need to be a mother.
Yes.
Absolutely. This is part of my journey, and really recognizing they are on their own journey and that they're going to have struggles, because that's the thing you want to protect. I was like, oh, they're Chiron, that's our wound. Can you know that and protect? Well, you can maybe create an outlet that helps them on their self healing journey, but the wound is there. It comes, from way in, and you can only be, an assistant on the journey, and they need trials and struggles in order to really learn and know who they are. And that's hard for parents and moms to watch, but I do think the separation is big.
It can be just hard when they're in tears and it's a bad day and they're going through it. It's like all of that can be hard. But I feel like even with astrology, like you can hone in on what they're learning, what's being developed, the meaning of it, the energy of it, also the resources, like how you can then, have them take something and move it forward. Or, I think about resources in terms of, okay, well, what does this mean? What is this about? How can I support him? Does that mean, he needs to do something else? Is there other information here I need to learn? I feel like there's a lot that we actually gain, even though it can be really hard at times.
I agree. I totally agree. To be a mom.
Yeah, it's everything, right? But we're equipped for it. And this is also why we need support, and why I need my mom friends who I adore. And I'm just so grateful to have other moms who get it, who are in on it. Yeah. And then of course, like you, Dominique, where we can then bring in astrology and talk about it from that angle too. Like that's how we support each other.
Absolutely. It's priceless. That's why I created the group, because I wanted to find more moms that were into what I was into, because I have plenty of mom friends, but maybe not all of them are into the astrology, and so it's finding that those like minds that really see that value of that tool and want to learn how to use it or work with it in a positive way. Oh my gosh, Molly, this is so fun. I feel like we could talk forever, but I think you probably have to get going. But I do want I want to just remind everybody about Molly's new book. This is her latest, Awakening Astrology, right? 5 key planetary energies for personal transformation. And that's where you talk about the sun, moon, and the personal planets. And I love from this soul growth perspective.
And you can reference that in terms of your child's chart.
Absolutely.
Look at their Mars. You can use that for your own conscious parenting.
Absolutely.
More of what they're learning in this life.
I absolutely was. I was looking through it, and I was actually looking at, my son's positions as much as my own. I'm like, oh yeah. So that's what I love. That's different about it, is because it does come from the soul growth perspective, and that energetic perspective. That's what I think makes it special and unique, and absolutely transcends. It's good for anybody new to astrology, seasoned astrologers, parents, right? And so do you have anything else you want to share in terms of, what you're up to, where people can find you? I know, are you so conscious, cool sheep?
Over at mollymccord.online.
Okay.
Website, mollymccord.online. And then I do a lot, here on YouTube with podcasts and videos and astrology stuff that, you can also understand your child with the current energies. You can understand what they're feeling or what they're experiencing. That's what's cool about astrology. There's always more.
Always
more you can go into. So yeah, I'm enjoying all of that. And I'm just enjoying, the people that I'm meeting too, who are into this world, and we can have some really good conversations about it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm so happy that you came on to talk to me and us to reconnect. And I hope we can do more, and keep.
I would love that. Yep. We can always do more. And we definitely kind of just stepped in the door here of this topic, but there's always so much more we can discuss. I really want parents to know how wonderful this information is to understand their child. Like, I'm a huge proponent, because as you and I discussed, we do it. Like, we use this. It's one of the tricks of our trade is to use this knowledge for our children. And I would love for more parents to join the party with that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here. It's been a joy, a pleasure, and we'll definitely stay in touch. And I look forward to a lot more from you. And thank you everyone for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.
Bye.
Bye everyone.
Thank you.